LB. Hey,
Hey, what's up? Yeah, man, what's going on?
not much.
Not much. How you doing,
Mm,
buddy?
man, I'm feeling good, man. I'm just loving life right now, seeing the ladies getting active.
Yeah, having a pretty good conversation. I mean, I appreciate your support, and I appreciate you coming on this stage right now. What is your thoughts on is submission really cooperation?
Is submission cooperation? I would say yeah, but it's what you're submitting to and what you're cooperating with. Um, it is ideal to have cooperation with the people you work with, whether it's a job, your family, which is your first order of business, and just any other mundane thing that you can actually think of. You want it to cooperate with you in a certain degree. Now, submission can bring about cooperation, or matter of fact, if someone is being submissive, they might pretty much they are cooperating, but is all forms of submission cooperation? I would say no. I would say no. It just depends because one can do what you say, but not really have their heart into it, not really want to do it, or not give their best self forward, but yet they're still submitting to do what you ask. So you may not get the same type of effort based on how you're telling someone they must cooperate. And that's I think that's a little nuance there. It's how someone is cooperating and what they're cooperating with. We all submissive to a degree. I'm submissive to my boss. I don't tell him what the fuck to do. I'm submissive to a lot of different things. When my bank tells me that they're closed on Saturday or Sunday, there's nothing I can do to convince them otherwise. I have to
Mm-hmm.
submit to that. So it's really it what you're submitting to. You know what I mean? And I would advocate for people to submit themselves to what they truly believe or where they can see true benefit.
Yeah, I agree.
I would
True
agree
Yeah,
that.
benefit.
because the abusive and I'll land here, the abusive person wants you to submit for nothing. And that's the problem. Submission comes with a cost. What are you providing that makes me stop what I want to do what you demand or decree?
So he do agree with me. It is a command and a demand, and the fine lines of the act of submission, or the request, or the demand, or the expectation of the. I could say there is a command and a demand and an expectation of submit. If someone wanting submission, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, sometimes you need submission in order to achieve whatever it is you're doing. It's just, some people want submission so they can have more beer, or that's so that they can, not be questioned with what they're doing. Others demand submission because they have real life plans or they have real life ideas with a high expectation of success that transcends what an average person can do by themselves. No one man can okay, let's say it like this. I'm one man, I have a lady, I go to work, we feed our family, versus the man who is not just a man, but he is the head or control of something valuable, whether it's a company, whether it's a this, whether it's a that. They got something going on, and they demand certain things in return for them to bring people in to what they already have going on. So it just depends.
I agree. I agree with what Honey's daughter said, where it's levels to submission. I agree that you will submit in many forms in life to many things in life. They cooperate with many things in life. However, I do agree that what someone said, I think that was Timothy, is that in Jessica, that we both as men and women in a relationship kind of submit to each other, just not in the same ways. and it's probably would never be in the same ways. And some of it may be just in the form of what is it? Reciprocity in a form of that. So showing reciprocation is nothing wrong with that. If your woman cook for you and you want to cook for her, it's not a gender role if you don't make it that. And if you want to make it that, that's fine as well. It's no one way to skin this cat. You skin this mug any type of way you want, sideways, backwards, diagonal, however you want to do it, whatever you choose to. But I did want to have a show today. I'm gonna wrap it up right here because this is like a perfect good mark to wrap this up. I did want to have a show where we kind of like have a conversation and discuss it out of what our expectations are is submission, what our thoughts on submission and the actual definition of the word cooperation and submission versus how we treat the word cooperation and submission in a relationship.
Yeah.
And
What?
get some better thoughts on that.
You
Honey,
hear-
what you
Nothing. I'm looking at Timothy's, and it's just wrong. When you're talking about a man wanting a woman to submit, once again, I just don't feel like submission is something you should ask for. I feel like it's something that you will receive upon her feeling like she could trust you, or him feeling like that he could trust you. To ask somebody to submit is crazy to me. Requesting temporary authority, no, if that's insane, I'm sorry, no. You can ask for cooperation. I don't feel like you could be asking for submission.
that's like asking for trust, right?
Yeah, that's
No. Mm-mm.
no.
Hell no.
Oh,
Submission ain't like asking for trust. Mm-mm.
Oh well, LV, let me ask you: is submission, is submission?
What are you asking?
Is submission like trust for you? Is it synonymous with each other? Submission and trust.
I'm looking at the definition of submission. It says the action or fact of accepting or yielding to a superior force or to the will or authority of another person. I see authority, I see the will of, I see a superior force in accepting the fact or yielding. No, that is, I mean, a good form of submission is you submitting to what the truth is. I can say that, but they are not synonymous. Submission and truth are not the same thing. What happens when a person is submissive, or I mean trust? Submission and trust. No, they're not the same thing. One does not require trust in order for you to submit. People don't trust the government, but they have superior force. Thus, people submit to judgments in courts. Officer will lock you up because they can respond in superior force, but that doesn't mean you trust them. Of course not. Now, you would want trust to be established to whom you are submitting to. That would be conducive for you. But no, they are not synonymous.
Okay, but in all those things that you named, we do put trust in those things. We put trust in the government. We put trust. What was you saying? Oh, my daughter was saying, like, when you said you submit to your boss, like, you trust that he's going to pay you for your hours. You trust that he's going to provide a safe working environment. Like, we do put trust in those things that we are so-called submitting to. Because when people
once again
trust into it, then they stop submitting to it, and it becomes all kinds of unrest, civil unrest.
Well, what about the superior force part? If someone is using superior force to make you submit, how does that make you trust them? You have to explain that part. It has to, for it, the word to be synonymous, it has to be uniform. It cannot agree with it over here, then disagree with it over there. So once again, I'll just land here, I'm using a government or whatever, superior force versus an individual. Are you saying that person who is experiencing superior force has to trust the superior force?
But I mean, what they do?
I'm asking you. I'm sorry. Somebody called me. I couldn't even hear you. Can you say it again?
Oh, like, hold on. Say your question again, because you're talking about the authority and the force. But
No. Submission. The definition of submission, it
right.
has qualifiers. It says superior force. I can use superior force to make you submit. Your
Yeah,
government can use. Well, I'm about to land here because for it to be synonymous, it has to be uniform. It has to apply unilaterally. If I can bring one example to where submission does not involve trust, then that's not true. So if a government or a police officer has more superior force than you and they make you do something, that doesn't mean you trust them. They're not synonymous.
But then you're using it in like two different ways though. Like those are two different kinds of submission. If the Russian army, makes Ukraine submit to them, right? That's a different kind of submission than me submitting to my husband.
Well, there's only one definition of submission, and it can be applied in many different contexts. But the definition will always be the same. And when you say synonymous, that means at the best similar or identical. So once again, like it gives you qualifying markers for what submission is. I'll read it one more time.
Then qualifying markers also it depends on the context too. Because when you're talking about submission, that's different than submitting at will.
Well, your husband could be superior than you versus his resources. What if he's a police chief? What if he's a high level politician? What if he has millions of dollars and you do not? This can be viewed as superior, and then someone can submit to it, but that doesn't mean you trust it. That doesn't mean you trust the person.
Right. So then we're looking at somebody who's choosing submission, right? We're choosing submission in a relationship with somebody, to whoever, when you're choosing to submit, right? And you're deeming that person an authority figure or in some way. You don't feel like that involves you trusting them in some way because you deem them as an authority figure.
It can, for sure. But everyone doesn't fall underneath those qualifications. But if we're talking relationship, I would say trust would behoove you to incorporate trust in your submission. It's hard to get desired results or even move forward with people that you don't trust. So I do think that trust plays a key in someone deciding to submit themselves. I think they trust you, then they submit. If we're talking relationships.
Yeah. Well, but then so then we also had the trusting. Me and Morphine was saying that you earn trust, and then somebody else was saying that you choose to trust, right? Like somebody can't necessarily always earn trust. You choose to trust them.
Yeah, I choose to trust my job because of track record with other jobs. I know once I work for a week, I get a paycheck. I trust that process. I trust it. You get what I'm saying? But it isn't. I've worked for jobs where I got burnt and didn't get a check, or it was under, or it was over. So the trust, like I said, it's one of those conditions that prompts your decision making. Now, how do you do you have to have trust, or how do you acquire trust? Well, some people earn it through their deeds towards another person or what someone has observed them do. Others trust people just because I've seen their face on TV. He's famous, or he's a sports player and he's recognizable. People trust for all different type of reasons. I trust my newsman because I've seen him there for 20 years. You know what I'm saying? Like he's vested, but that doesn't mean they're telling me the truth. So it's a fine line. I think trust should be earned. Unfortunately, we live in a world to where I could say the right thing on TikTok and earn your trust, and ain't none of it got to be true.
Well, I'm gonna end the show right here because we at the
Man,
we at the hour mark.
Oh, we gotta do it too. We never got the male's commitment.
All right, well, let's cover that for a good 2 minutes. I let it go over 2 minutes. 2 minutes. I'm gonna bring up the definition of commitment real quick. Let me bring that up because I got that in the share screen. So here's commitment. Now, Mel might be a little right about this. Let me take this banner down so we could read this properly. So it says commitment, the state or quality of being dedicated to a cause, activity, etc. An engagement or obligation that restricts freedom of action.
Hmm. Oh shit! I think that commitment was what he wanted.
Maybe he was a little right, you know. What do we think, people? What do we think about this?
I think
Commitment. The state of quality of being dedicated to a cause, activity, etc. Obviously, commitment would be okay. And I want to look at the root word commit.
so. They're
Carry
looking
out.
for commitment, not even cooperation.
Yeah,
No, he said we
commitment.
gotta look up commitment.
Yeah, commitment to me. I mean, the definition is clear, but I guess for an example is how much effort over time are you willing to give to something, and that would be fundamentally commitment. And if we're talking relationships and you're trying to see how someone's committed or will they commit, once again, it's those things, these key definitions that you guys are talking about: trust, submission. Like, these things have to be talked about before someone submits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Before,
Okay.
because a submission is something you have to commit to. So before you do any of that, you have to already unpack the lines of truth, expectations of finance. You feel me? Rules of engagement, and we don't do that a lot of times in relationships. We have this. We get together and we just expect people to, you know what I mean, come from where you come from and expect them to see life the way you do. Nah, y'all have to sit down, come together with the rules of engagements clearly, and then I think the submission part can happen at that point. But I don't really even advocate for that shit because niggas be submitting and then 40 years later, niggas or females will jump ship and one half of the party be fucked up. And it's like you done gave your life building another motherfucker or they dream or what they had, and you ain't really take care of yourself. You feel what I'm saying? And this happens all the time.
But you can.
It's damn near like religion. You feel what I'm saying? Like you can service that church for 20 years and be broke as fuck at the end of the 20 years, but the church bank account is hefty. Then you say, well, I don't know if God's a male. You kicked out the church regardless of how much